Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Hidden Creatures, m.c.f.a.p Encounters with Father and Son. m.c.f.a.p stands for Mythical, Cryptid, Fae/Fairy, Alien, and Paranormal. So what we are doing here, as the name suggests, Father and Son, we're looking at the relationships between the m.c.f.a.p umbrella, again, mythical, cryptid, fairy, fae, alien, paranormal. Trying to explore if they're all related or if they're each their individual category. In order to do that, we're going to be interviewing people. We have a lot of really interesting interviews lined up for this season. We have interviews with people who've experienced a witch, Bigfoot, ghosts,
aliens,
a folklorist who specializes in Southern Appalachia, I guess, depending on where you're from, depends on how you pronounce it. So we're going to be doing that. So some of our episodes are going to be doing those interviews, and other episodes are just going to be the two of us doing sort of dives into creatures. So this being our first interview, we decided we should sort of introduce ourselves, talk about some strange experiences we have had, and then we are each going to talk about a creature. We have each chosen a creature. Rainey, your creature is?
The Glas Gaibhnenn, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And mine is the Squonk. We will tell some of our own stories first, and then we'll get into the creatures. And then episode 2, we are slated to interview the witch. So we're going to start with my experiences. My first experience, I'm going to refer to it as the property. And we're going to be talking to quite a few people who have had experiences on the property as well,
including me.
So I've been sort of on and off the property for the past 20 years and have had a slew of experiences. We're just going to talk about one today. Yeah, and just about anybody who's spent any kind of time out there has had
some kind of weird experience.
So we're going to be talking about quite a few of those over our journey through this podcast. But today we're talking about mine. So my first experience about 20 years ago, we were out there, and it was like sort of like a summer camp for kids. And before, and this was the first year it was active. Before we had it was just sort of an abandoned property for a while, and it's a pretty big property, combination of like fields, like hilly fields and like forested areas. One night, I was doing an overnight shift, and I was down where the kids slept, just to make sure the kids didn't do kid type stuff. This was me and a couple other staff members at the time, and where they slept was up on top of the hill. And so it was like, sort of clear, like pasture-y area, fieldy area. And then going down the hill into a hollow or a holler, depending on where you're from, it got sort of wooded. But there wasn't, like down in the bottom, there wasn't a lot of underbrush. So it was more like park-like, I guess. A bunch of trees, sort of older trees, but not a lot of undergrowth. We were up there, and we heard this sound that sounded similar to a male deer, a buck, sort of huffing or blowing. And it's sort of this, like, and my imitation is going to sound nothing like what it really, but you'll get sort of a vague idea if you've never heard it before. It's like a, sort of like this deep, lungy, throaty, where they just force sort of this, like, it sounds like that, roughly. So me, being the person I am, we had this big spotlight, so I took the spotlight, shined it down in the woods. Like I wanted to see some deer. And this one sounded really big, so I really wanted to see like a really big deer. And didn't see anything. It was quiet. 5 minutes later or so, heard the noise again. Shined the spotlight again. Didn't see anything again. 5 minutes later, exact same thing. Heard the noise, shined the spotlight, didn't see anything. So at that point in time, I was like, whatever. So we had like a little shack that we could go into. There's a computer in there, like a refrigerator, some chairs. And so I went in and sat down in the shack, and it was small. It was like maybe 10 by 10 wooden The door faced like where the kids slept, had windows on the other three sides, and the back of the shack faced down into the holler. So anyway, went and sat down. Was sitting down for however long, 5-10 minutes, and something big hit the back of that shack hard enough to make it shake. And then you could hear it run off screaming, yelling. It was more of a yell than a scream. But it was this sort of deep, guttural, but at the same time sort of high-pitched noise. So I jumped out, grabbed the flash, grabbed the spotlight, whatever. Didn't see anything, but we could hear it running. It was big, and it was bipedal, however you pronounce it, meaning it was running on 2 feet. And things running on 2 feet sound a lot different than things running on 4 feet. And this definitely sounded like it was running on 2 feet. Didn't see anything. All I could do was hear it. I could hear it running, and I could hear it making this guttural, low, but also high-pitched noise. And I realized something can't be low and high at the same time, cancel each other out. I get it, but that's what it sounded like. Talked with the other people on, like none of us knew what it could be, nothing. And this was in North Alabama, and nothing we know of that lived in the area or lives in the area is that size, that strong, and makes that noise. So it wasn't a wild pig. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a deer. It wasn't an owl. It wasn't a mountain lion. I've spent a lot of time in the woods, and nothing I've ever experienced sound or moved like that. Next morning, people came, talking to the people who run the place and all that, so I told them about it. Like, it was probably an owl. An owl probably ran into the back of it. Exactly. It was not an owl. Like, owls, like, sort of look big, but there are a lot of feathers, and don't have that much mass to them. An owl couldn't have hit it hard enough to make it move. It's like, maybe a deer ran into the back. No, it wasn't a deer. It wasn't a bear. Like I said, it was nothing that I've ever had an experience with. Yeah, and that was that. Just this crazy experience. Didn't really happen again to me out there, but it was definitely a crazy experience. Question, sorry.
Yeah. How fast was it running?
It was running fast. I would say at least as fast as a person could sprint, like full out. But this creature like maintained it. So it wasn't, people can only sprint for so long. Like this creature maintained that speed until I couldn't hear it anymore. Like it was fast and moving. And like it was running through woods. So like there wasn't a lot of undergrowth. There was still some undergrowth, and there, trees are down, so you'd have to clear, logs and stuff like that. And it was the middle of the night, so it was dark. So imagine sprinting all out through the woods at night.
How long could you hear it running?
That's a good question. I'd say a couple of minutes.
Okay.
My next encounter, I guess I'm going to talk about 3 encounters. My next encounter, or weird thing, happened in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. I was leading a backpacking trip, kids, one other staff member. Southern edge of the Smoky Mountains. There's a big lake. There used to be a river there, dammed up the river, created a big lake. And people lived along it. So they had to move all those people out. But part of the deal was they were going to build a road so people could get back in and get to those, their sort of home sites and their towns and their cemeteries and graveyards. And so the Park Service government started building a road. In the beginning, the road went through the mountains. So they had to dig a tunnel. However, once they got the tunnel built, they decided they weren't going to make the road anymore. So the start of the trail, you have to walk through this long tunnel that was built for a road, but they never put a road there. So anyway, you walk through tunnel, trail, whatever, drop down. And that trail, sort of goes the length of the width of the Smokies along the lake there, and I believe it's called the Lakeshore Trail. But anyway, we got in, and the first big trail coming up off the lake, it was going more into the park. I believe it's called the Forney Creek Trail. So the first night we camped, right there where Lakeshore met Forney Creek. And the next day we headed up Forney Creek Trail, about 10 miles. As we're going, the other staff member and I, or the other staff member, she just got sort of slower as the day went on, and slower and slower. So I pulled her aside and was like, hey, what's going on? Notice moving too quickly. They expressed to me that their foot was bothering them. So I was like, okay, well, we'll just take it easy, get to camp, figure it out. Got to camp, talked to them. A couple years prior, they're in a really bad car accident, messed up their foot really bad. Foot basically had to be completely rebuilt. Bunch of like screws and nuts and bolts and plates and whatever. And their foot really bothered them. So I said, hey, check it out. We can do a couple things for her. We can wake up in the morning. If you're feeling better, we can keep going. If you're not feeling better, we can just take a day off and hang out here. That your foot recuperates some. We'll make a call in the morning. Woke up the next morning. The person was like, my foot is no good. We'll just stay here. So we stayed there that day. Checked in on them throughout the day. End of the day, they're like, yeah, foot's still not feeling great. I don't think we can go any further. So we came up with a plan. And we're like, look, here's what we'll do. We'll hike back out. But tomorrow we won't do it all in one day because it was like a 14-mile hike out. I was like, but tomorrow, we have to do 10 miles back to the, campsite A. But this is what we'll do. I'll wake up early. I'll run my stuff back to that campsite. I'll drop my stuff. I'll come back up. I'll pick up you and the kids. I'll carry all of your stuff. And then we'll head back out. So basically, I was doing a 30-mile hike that day.
A lot.
Yes, that is a lot. And usually when I'm hiking and backpacking, I like to take my time. I like to see the sights. I like to take in nature. I don't like to rush through it. I'm known for, if you come across a nice rock, a nice vista, a nice field. In the south here, we have what's called balds, which are, tops of mountains that there's no growth on them. So just nice sort of grassy areas. But I'll pull over, I'll take a nap. Like I said, I like taking my time and just enjoying it. Campsite on the trail is where you eat dinner, where you sleep. That's it. I want to be on the trail as much as possible and take my time and enjoy it. So anyway, but this day I was cruising because I had to walk 30 miles and there wasn't really time for me to enjoy what was going on. So anyway, a couple miles into this hike, meet back up at Forney Creek. And where we met up, the creek was on my left, which would have been east side. I was headed south. And then to my right, there is a little shoulder of the mountain, but not much underbrush on it. And I'm cruising, and I look up, and there are 5 wolves in the middle of the trail. And I'm sure we all had the same look on our face when we saw each other. And one look was like, what the heck are you doing here? Because you're not supposed to be here. For me, it was, early morning, it was dusk-ish. So it was light. I didn't have a headlamp on or anything. It was light, but it wasn't, full sunshine. So probably earlier than most hikers get moving. And so for them, they just weren't expecting to see a person there at that time of the morning. And I wasn't expecting to see wolves because, well, wolves don't live in the Smokies. Well, they aren't supposed to live in the Smokies anyway. I know somebody else saying, he probably saw coyotes or there was dogs or it wasn't. They weren't. They were wolves. I know what wolves look like. These were wolves. Well, like I said, there was 5 of them. 3 of them, I can't describe what they looked like. I know there was 5. 3 of them, I can't describe to you. The one that I'm assuming was the leader looked like your typical wolf, sort of grayish, like a mask sort of. And that one and we just sort of locked eyes and just looked at each other. And the 5th one was all black. And initially when I first came up to it, it was sort of at the sort of far end of the pack. And it walked up and placed itself between the rest of the pack and me. I have no idea how long this interaction took place, but it was a while. We came to an understanding that none of us were there to mess with the other one. It's not like we talked to each other, but it was it was just this understanding. I stayed where I was. They were, I let them do whatever they do. And then they just, however long, I can't tell you how long it was. It was a weird experience. And then they all sort of moved off together to my right, which would have been to the west, sort of up this shoulder. And then they just sort of dissolved, and it was a slow dissolve, which again, I understand sounds probably weird. Because they didn't disappear. It wasn't like they went into the underbrush and I couldn't see them anymore, or they went over the shoulder of the mountain and so I couldn't see them anymore. It was more of just like they dissolved. Like you could see the picture and the picture faded out. Sort of like, the end of songs, sometimes how the end of songs fade out. It was almost the similar thing where the physical being of these wolves just faded out. Dropped my stuff, came back, got them back down, hiked out next day, talked to some rangers. I was like, hey, I saw some wolves. And they said, no, you didn't. Wolves don't live here. And I said, well, you need to tell them that because sure enough, there were some wolves. There was 5. I saw them. And they said, no, you probably saw coyotes. I said, no, I know what coyotes look like. These were not coyotes. Well, it's probably a pack of dogs, like pack of just wild dogs. Nope. I know what dogs look like. Not dogs. These were wolves. Didn't believe me. Told me I was, seeing things. Didn't know what I was looking at. But again, I know, like, I've spent a lot of time in the backcountry, in the southeast, the Rocky Mountain West. I spent a lot of time. I know what wolves look like. I know what dogs look like. I know what coyotes look like. And these were wolves. Okay, so my last encounter, again, Smokies, similar area, but this time we were doing Lakeshore Trail, but we were going from the eastern edge all the way along to the western edge, and the western edge of Lakeshore Trail meets up with the Appalachian Trail to cross the dam down there. It's I think it's called Fontana Dam. So anyway, a couple days in, and the only way to access that area, I guess there are 2 ways, is either by foot or by boat. There isn't a road anywhere close to it. There's not a parking area. And even by boat, it's rough because they flooded mountains. So all the shores are real steep. Aren't like good landings. It's not an easy place to get to, even on foot. And we were probably right in the middle. So probably 20 miles, give or take, from the nearest trailhead or road. Set up camp that night. Went to bed. In the middle of the night, I woke up because I heard what sounded like a pack of dogs, like somebody was out there running dogs, after raccoons or whatever. So, I woke up and paid attention to it because I didn't want a bunch of, hounds come running through camp or, a hunter come running through our campsite. So, figured I'd, give them a little bit of warning. There's nothing I could do about the dogs running through, but I could let the hunter know. And then as I sort of woke up and my mind started working a little better, and I got thinking, like, who the heck would be running dogs out here? Because like I said, we were far, 20 miles or so from a trailhead, which means that they would have had to run those dogs for 20 miles, which means to get back out, they'd have to run those dogs and themselves another 20 miles. And I know I just said I did like 30 miles in my last one, but still, like, that's a lot. And 40 miles is a lot more. And it's not the easiest to train. You're going up and down and around. And so there's that. So we really weren't close to a trailhead. The other thing is, it's illegal to hunt in national parks. And I know people poach. It's silly, but they do it. I get it. But usually, people who are poaching, want to do the easiest thing possible, which means not having to travel 20 miles into a national park to poach. That just takes a lot of effort to do something illegal, especially when, the Smokies are surrounded by national forest, so you could run dogs all you want through the national forest and not have to go in there and not have to run them 20 miles. So now I'm sort of thinking about all this stuff and sort of how that's sort of weird and doesn't make much sense. And then I started, and I could hear the dogs, and I could hear, quote unquote, the hunter. But I started, paying more attention to it, and hunting dogs they sound a particular way, and I realize sort of each breed has their own sound, but still, like, hounds are hounds. You can tell a hound. And although these sounded similar enough when I woke up to, like, I thought they were running hounds, the more I listened to them, the more I realized that they didn't really sound like hounds. There's a bunch of things barking, for lack of a better term, and howling, for lack of a better term, but it wasn't the sound of like a pack of hounds. And then the hunter that was with them, I could hear them clearly and clear enough to decipher, okay, this is the hunter and here are the hounds, and realize that, like, the hunter wasn't speaking in a language that I recognized or knew. And I don't really speak many foreign languages, but I can make a good guess on which one I'm listening to, whether it be, French or German or Spanish or whatever. And again, this was just a sound that it wasn't close to any language I've ever heard or that I recognized at that time of night in that particular place. So anyway, I listened to them for a good bit. They never really got any closer to our camp. I listened to them until I couldn't hear them anymore, 5 or 10 minutes maybe. Then I stayed up awake for a while, just trying to figure out what had just happened. And then eventually I fell asleep and, didn't hear them again. So that's the 3 interesting stories I'm talking about tonight.
How far away was this happening?
From where we were sleeping?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe a couple 100 yards to a quarter mile is when it started. Then, eventually they as they got further away, they faded out, but a couple 100 yards to a quarter mile.
So their voice was loud? Sort of?
Yeah, hounds are loud.
Okay.
And then, when you're whooping them on and encouraging them on, you're, sort of yelling and hooting and hollering at them. Like,
okay.
Would you like to share 1 or 2 of your stories?
I'll share 2.
Okay.
My first one was so I was washing eggs on the property when it was a farm, which was a year ago?
Yeah, give or take.
Okay. And then I started hearing this knocking on the wall about 5 feet away from the door. For about the first 5 minutes, I thought it was just the wind knocking a branch onto the wall. And then I looked out and I saw that none of the other branches were moving. And I realized that there wasn't a tree close enough to be knocking on the wall. So then I thought it was the person that was living on the property at the time. So then 5 minutes later, I was going to go outside and see who it was. So I got to the door, and then I couldn't open the door. Like, something was leaning against it with all of its might. So then I went running over to the building where Bo was. That was my first one.
Pretty creepy, huh? Yeah, so you said you felt like the door wasn't stuck, but something was actually holding it shut.
Leaning against it. Not holding it.
Yeah, but leaning against it, so you couldn't open it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Did it make any noise, or, other than the noise like banging, did it make any vocalizations?
I didn't hear any. And then my next one is the way the farm was, was in the front there was a ginormous chicken coop. And then if you went up the road, there was quail and baby chickens. And then if you go up the road some more, there was the building where I had my experience. I was close to the building where I had my first experience, and then I started hearing this whistling. It sounded far away. And then I told my mom because Bo wasn't there, and she couldn't hear it. And then about 20 minutes later, I think, I heard it again at the big chicken coop at the front. And that time, my mom could hear it. And the dogs were barking at the general area where it was happening. And the whistling was loud to be that clear and to be heard over the dogs. because I think we had 5 of them, and they were all barking in that area.
And so what did the whistling sound like? Like, did it sound like a person whistling, or what did...
I think it was about the same, like, rhythm of the knocking I heard on the wall of my first experience.
But did it sound like a person, or not so much?
A little bit, except with, like, more powerful lungs.
Gotcha. So it was really loud.
Yeah.
And the dogs weren't happy?
No.
So you think the dogs felt like it was a threat of some kind?
Yeah.
Shall we get into our creatures?
Sure.
So as we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I chose to do the lonely, sad, miserable creature hailing from the hardwood forests of Pennsylvania, known as the Squonk. The Squonk. Probably one of the saddest creatures to ever be rumored to exist, found in the hemlock forest of Pennsylvania. Is known, it's just a pitiful creature. And the fact that it's sad and pitiful makes it even more sad and pitiful. I mean, it's hard not to feel sorry for the Squonk. But the Squonk is known for its profound and deep sorrow, its ugliness, its shame, and for an unending cascade of tears. Supposedly, it's about the size of a pig. It has 4 legs like a pig, but that's where the resemblance ends. It is so, quote, repulsed by its own ill-fitting, wart-covered skin that it weeps constantly. And this perpetual sadness defines its existence and behavior, leading to perhaps its most bizarre reported trait, the ability to dissolve completely into a pool of tears and bubbles when it is captured or cornered, unquote. Let me break this down. When it either sees itself or when it knows somebody else has seen it, it gets so upset that something has witnessed its ugliness and grotesqueness that it starts crying so hard that it dissolves itself in its own tears into just a puddle of teary goop. There's been 1 or 2 reports of people actually capturing the creature. However, those people have no proof, because once they got the creature back to like show their buddies and friends in the newspapers, they would open the sack or cage or whatever they got it in, and there would be nothing but a puddle in there, because the poor old Squonk cried itself into oblivion. It is also rumored to have webbed feet, but only on the left side. So whatever gets stuck in like a pond or a river or whatever, it can only swim in circles. Only its left feet are webbed. The first written account of the Squonk was in 1920 in the book called Fearsome Creatures of the Lumberwoods, written by William T. Cox. And there's a picture of the Squonk in there, and the illustrator was Court Dubois, or Court Dubois. So first name Coert, last name Dubois. So depending on where you're from, it's either Dubois or Dubois. I'll let you make the distinction. William Cox, the author, Cox, he went around, that area, so I guess the eastern Midwest, interviewing lumberjacks about strange encounters they'd had in the woods, and quite a few from the Pennsylvania area all shared this story of the Squonk. So he wrote it into his book. Another book in 1939 called Fearsome Critters, written by Henry H. Tryon, Tryon, also talks about the Squonk. And the illustration from that book has become like the go-to image of what the Squonk looks like. And that Squonk, and that picture was illustrated by, I'm assuming it was Henry's wife, but I guess it could have been his sister or daughter, Margaret R. Tryon. And like I said, that has been like the go-to illustration of this is what a Squonk looks like. And again, that book is titled Fearsome Critters, and it came out in 1939. The Latin name for the squonk is the Lacrima corpus dissolvens, which translates into tear, body dissolving. Various people have reported seeing it through the years, through retellings. The main description of the squonk has always held true. It's miserable, it's sad, it's crying, warty, has ill-fitting skin. If you ever want to see the squonk, they are reported to be most active at twilight and dusk, and they like to stay in the shadows, doing their best to avoid bright light, and doing their best to minimize the risk of either anyone seeing it or of it seeing its own reflection in water or like a river or a pond or a puddle. The thing doesn't want to be seen. It's sad. It cries. The squonk does have a couple of pop culture, right? I guess it has some pop culture notoriety. In 1970, ZZ Top wrote a song called Squonk. 1974, Steely Dan referenced the squonk in a song called Any Major Dud Will Tell You. And Genesis wrote a song in 1976 titled Squonk. More recent pop culture madness, I believe 4 years ago was the first
Squonkapalooza.
It's a festival dedicated to the squonk in Pennsylvania. Next year, so 2026, I believe, it will be happening on August 1st. Just go check it out. And that is the squonk. Okay, Rainey, I'm handing it over to you.
The Glas Gaibhnenn, or fairy cow, as I'm going to be calling it, is a magic cow and an Irish folklore. As the month of January draws to a close, we are fast approaching St. Bridget's Day on the 1st February, which in Irish tradition marks the first day of spring. It is around this time of year that the calving season begins, and St. Bridget herself is considered the patron saint of cattle in Irish tradition. The saint is often associated with the fairy cow. One story of the fairy cow is one day a sly woman heard this story. She vowed that she would bring a vessel which the cow couldn't fill, and she went under the cow and was milking her until the cow got fed up by the length of the time the woman was under her, and she grew impatient. She looked behind her, and when she saw all her milk in little lakes around the field, her soul departed from her.
Gotcha. So the cow's soul departed, not the person. So it wasn't like she was like, I'm gonna kill you, and like no. So the cow was just really perturbed.
Yeah, by somebody wasting her milk.
That wasn't very nice of that person.
No.
Cows here doing nice things for the people, giving all the milk it can give. And got peeved that somebody was wasting its milk and taking advantage.
Yeah.
And so where's this cow from again?
I wasn't able to get a specific location, but somewhere in Ireland. And so the Irish, their pronunciations are a little different than us Americans. Yeah, which is why I was calling it the fairy cow.
Yeah. Will you spell it how it's spelt in Irish?
GlasGaibhnenn.
No, that's the English translation. Spell how it would be spelt in Irish.
GlasGaibhnenn. And then there are a couple of other pronunciations.
Mm-hmm. Us Americans aren't used to pronouncing something like that. Yeah, another spelling. So the first word would be GLAS, and the second word would be GAIBHNEACH. Another one has it spelled GAIMHNEACH.
I think that's all of them that I was able to get.
Yeah, and it looks like the cow has been attributed to a couple different saints. So St. Bridget, as was mentioned, but also St. Brendan. And one rumor looks like it has like the cow was sent by God to help with the famine.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what we have talked about today. So thank you for joining us on this little journey. If you want to find us off of here, currently we are on Facebook. If you just type in m.c.f.a.p, m.c.f.a.p, it'll take you to our page on Facebook.
And then if anybody has any pictures or video or recordings or something, we'll put it on Facebook.
Yeah. You can also email us at m.c.f.a.p, m.c.f.a.p podcast, all one word, at gmail.com. Just all one word, all lowercase, m.c.f.a.p podcast at gmail.com. If you're listening and you have some interesting
stories or myths or folklore,
yeah, we'd love to hear it. We'd love to have you on our show, even if you just want to talk about it, not be on our show. Awesome. If you want to remain anonymous, that's cool. Like, we're not videotape. It's all audio. We just won't mention your name. Our next one's going to be about a witch encounter. And we've got a lot of really cool stuff lined up for y'all.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us on our journey. Do you have anything else to say?
Don't be like the Squonk.
Don't be like the Squonk. Truer words have never been spoken. We appreciate y'all, and we are signing off.